Good morning, good afternoon, and for some, good evening. Welcome to today's webinar, Oracle EPM 11.2, It's Coming and Why You Should Care. My name is Michelle Morrill, and I am the Director of Marketing here at MindStream Analytics. And before I introduce our presenter today, I just want to point out that we are recording this session. So if you'd like access to that recording, or even if you just want the presentation slides, or if you have questions during the webinar, or maybe you think of something afterwards, please email us at info@mindstreamanalytics.com. Our presenter today is MindStream's Director of Planning Practice, Cameron Lackpour. Thank you to everyone who's taken their time out of your schedule today to join us. And now I'm going to turn controls over to Cameron.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. I'll start right off. So just a super brief word about MindStream itself. You can read this slide faster than I can say it, so I'm not going to say it. I will tell you that I have been in the EPM space since 1990, although it wasn't called EPM back then. I've been a consultant since 1996. I've worked for a handful of consulting companies, mostly for myself in the past, and I've certainly observed a lot of consulting companies from the outside, and not just as an employee, as a person that can make a fairly critical review of a consulting company. This is a pretty good one. So I don't think I need to say more than that, but it's a good consulting company. I will leave it at that. And with that, I'll go to me. Quickly about me. So I'm the planning practice lead at MindStream. I'm an Oracle ACE Director Alumni. I was the editor-in-chief of the Developing S-Base Applications book series. I have two blogs out there. My S-Base Hacker one is my old blog that was around since 2008 through 2017, I believe. There were over 300 blog posts there. A new one now exists, The Truth About EPM or The Truth About CPM, take your pick. That's where all the new content goes. And then lastly, you can follow me on Twitter at Cameron Lackpour. With a name like that, it's easy to have a nice Twitter handle. So if I work for Oracle, I don't work for Oracle, I would put in the beginning of this presentation something called a safe harbor statement. And a safe harbor statement is this like giant wall of text that is their legal disclaimer about what they're going to present. And I always find it difficult to understand, so I've broken it down to 3 points. This is not legalese, of course, but what I'm about to tell you, the point being, what I'm about to tell you is some of what I'm going to review may happen, all of it may happen, none of it may happen. Really, in essence, you have been warned. That is what a safe harbor statement means. Please listen to what I have to say. It's the best information I can get. I've garnered it from official presentations that they've given, Oracle has given at Open World just a short while ago, in addition to what I've heard in conversations with product management. But I have no power to make this happen. I don't think Oracle necessarily sometimes has the power to deliver exactly what they've stated. So, be aware of that and don't bet your life on what I have to say, although I do believe it is generally accurate. And with that, let's talk about the state of 11.124. So what was I doing in 2015? 2015, I had just moved out of Philadelphia. I lived there for 20 years. I had a lot less gray hair. And I looked and was excited by the last release of the on-premises 11.124 Oracle EPM product stack. 4 years, more than 4 years, really, depending on the product you're looking at, is a lifetime in software. And although there have been bug fixes between then and now, generally from a functionality perspective, it hasn't changed at all. Why? Because in large part, Oracle has pivoted its R&D dollars and its development dollars and product management dollars and everything else dollars into the cloud. The cloud is Oracle's direction now. However, we are talking about on-premises planning in version 11.2, so that isn't strictly true any longer. And that's in large part due to customers like you, who have, for a variety of reasons, not chosen to go down the path of cloud EPM products. So Cloud. it's everywhere, it's the buzz, it's the direction of the market, and yet, while it's a compelling argument and a compelling product direction, it isn't necessarily true. And again, you wouldn't be listening to this presentation if it was true for you. It isn't necessarily accurate to say that it's everywhere but where you work. It probably is at your company. In fact, it almost certainly is, depending on the functionality and depending on the application in question. So lots and lots of things that move to the cloud. At least in your case, Oracle EPM has as yet not done that. It is a compelling argument. I mean, the reason it's so popular is not because it's in the trade press or because it's talked at the conferences. It has all sorts of advantages. It generally costs less. That isn't always true, but it can cost less. It is sometimes faster to implement. Certainly, the way Oracle has gone with its frameworks and its business modules, particularly in planning, implementations can be faster, although you're sort of locked into a particular approach. Depending on the type of cloud instance, probably more if it's a platform as a service or infrastructure as a service as opposed to EPM software as a service products, you can have better performance, you can have better scalability, more flexibility than you would necessarily have with on-premises anything. And probably most importantly, from a business perspective, what were formerly capital expense costs now become OpEx. It's just easier to get OpEx dollars than it is to get CapEx. That's not a little deal, and I'm sure that's something that you've all at least considered with your current implementation, current product selection. So why don't you have it? Why haven't you moved to all of the cloud products that Oracle has? As I said, it's certainly been their focus for multiple years. Why are you still not converted over to cloud products? Part of that might be control. When the essence of having a cloud vendor and a cloud product is that you don't control it. You don't control the servers. You don't control where the data centers are. You don't control updates. You don't control any of that. You don't want to. That is the idea behind cloud. However, that might be something you need to do. You don't want to do updates when Oracle does updates to its SaaS products. You don't want the data center to be who knows where because that's not part of your IT standards. You lose control when you go with cloud. That is intrinsic to the cloud message itself, the cloud products themselves. Security. I would argue that vendors do a pretty good job with security, that's a core part of their business. Regardless, the security standards that a cloud vendor may offer, including Oracle, may not be up to snuff. It may not meet your company's needs. This ties back to control. It can make it just as rigid and just as secure as you want. When you have a cloud product, you get what the cloud vendor offers. Again, the idea behind a cloud instance is you don't own the hardware. You don't run the data in a data. You don't run the application in a data center. The vendor does. Oracle does. You're dependent upon them. If they say we're bringing things down because we've got an issue with the release, this has happened in the PDCS world at least, you're out of luck. Oracle's going to do it for everyone. They don't do piecemeal. Your system will go down, get reverted, get upgraded, whatever. Again, this is the idea of why you will have bought into the cloud paradigm, but that may not be something that you want. That may not be acceptable for your system. That may not coincide with when your business does things, and you really don't have a choice. In the cloud world, again, this concept of control. Cost. Oracle has historically, over the last 4 years, been very aggressive on low cost, or at least making deals on low cost. However, 2 years ago, I was on an Oracle EPM project. It was a planning project, and the customer told me that he had Oracle sales reps practically begging him to switch from on-prem to PDCS, and he told them, here's the cost of my maintenance on a yearly basis. If you're telling me I can have this many users for this amount or less, I'll switch. And they looked at the number. I don't know what the number was. They didn't share that with me, and they said we can't do it. You could be in a similar situation as well. Everything that has gone towards the cost of the application because it was an existing Oracle client that had all been amortized, had all been written off. They were in the gravy zone at that point. So it isn't necessarily true that a lower license cost on a per user basis going to be cheaper than what you have today. And finally, migration. In the planning world, and I think of planning and consolidations as the two big players in the EPM market. In the planning world, even if you were to say, I'm going to take my single planning application and migrate it up to the cloud into a pod, you wouldn't really do that because there's different functionality in the cloud, there's different requirements. You could take the general shape of the application and most of the functionality, but you still have a partial rebuild process, and I would argue that would be an excellent time to really look at what you're doing. So there's that kind of migration cost, and if you are a consolidations customer, FCCS, Financial Consolidation Cloud Service, is non-HFM under the covers. It's a completely different engine. It's a completely different way of looking at consolidations or a way of implementing consolidations. It is a complete rebuild, and that is a huge factor if you have a complex HFM application. And then lastly, culture. It may just be that your CIO feels, or your CFO feels, or your Vice President of Finance feels that for a certain class of applications, they don't leave the premises. They don't leave the company's control. And there's really nothing you can do about that as the owner of an application or the person that supports the series of EPM applications, but it is definitely a consideration as to why you might not have moved to the cloud already. And Oracle gets it. I mean, that's why 11.124 is not the last release of on-premises Oracle EPM. They get it, that these are all considerations for their customers. So, okay, you've decided not to switch to cloud for a variety of reasons. There could be other ones that I haven't listed in the prior slide. What happens with that decision? What is the impact to you and your company? If you stick with 11.124, Premier support, the highest level of support that Oracle has been extended an extra year. It's finished before, it ended before in December 2020. Okay, now you've got an extra year. So in essence, you've got 2 years to figure out what on earth you're going to do. You can continue to use 11.124 past December 2021. It just goes down a level of support. It goes from Premier to, I think it's called Extended. I could be getting the name wrong. And then finally after that, it would go to something called Sustaining Support. All that you really need to keep in mind is as you go down the levels of support, the potential for risk on your side becomes greater. You have new hardware that doesn't support the older stuff. Your IT department insists on upgrading components of your EPM implementation, and maybe it's supported and maybe it's not supported, and maybe if it is supported, it's not supported terribly well. 11.124 in general, except for big things, is pretty much locked, just like it has been for the last few years, except for bug fixes. That's an important consideration. How long can you keep something like that going? Oracle doesn't think that that's a super long-term perspective because they're introducing 11.2. And 11.2 is part of a movement within Oracle called Oracle Applications Unlimited. What Applications Unlimited means is Premier support now goes through 2030. So we're talking 11 years out, 10 years out, really. It's changed. It's not just that support is longer. Now they're explicitly saying you can run this on premises. You could run this in Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, which is infrastructure as a service. Really, if you can run it as an OCI pod, you can run it in AWS, you can run it in Google, you can run it in Azure. Anything that you can install the software on, you could run it there. The idea being, just as it is today with 11.124, the product is the same across the platform. There is a real product roadmap. We'll see the roadmap in just a moment. But if you think about what they've had to say at conferences and their own presentations on the product roadmap, there hasn't been anything for 11.124. Now there will be something there because there's real money to go into the R&D behind the product. Remember that when Oracle made the push to cloud, they completely pivoted and put all of their resources into those cloud products. I think they've taken a step back, thought about what they're doing, thought about their customer needs, and said, aha, we need to give our loyal customers on premises a way to move forward. There's also, this is one of the big reasons that people got excited about cloud was the difficulty and the complexity and the cost of doing an upgrade from, let's say, 11.123 500 to 11.124. In the past, you had to upgrade everything. At least that was the recommended approach, although there were always companies that didn't totally adhere to that. But then you invited all sorts of interesting kinds of potentials for instability. That's not going to happen in 11.2 as part of Applications Unlimited, because that's not the theory or the spirit of Applications Unlimited. Instead, you will be able to pick a particular product and just update that. So you could have varying releases, and it's all supported within this environment. And then lastly, they're talking about a way of explicitly polling customers through their Customer Connect program and using that as the driving force behind new features and feature improvements. So I don't know really how totally different that is from their current approach. I think it gives customers a greater voice, though, because they certainly do listen to customers today. I just think this is a more formal way to garner those requirements and figure out how to put them into the product itself. So that sounds wonderful. Why would anyone not like it? It's been 4 years since any of the changes have been made. When are we going to get this? And that has been the question for the last 3 years, because I first heard about 11.2, I believe, at ODTUG's Kscope conference in 2016. Well, here we are in 2019, and in fact, the product was scheduled for the 3rd quarter, so like last month of this year, and you may have noticed we're in the 4th quarter of this year, and the product has not been released. The word now is this year, still this calendar year, December. So fingers crossed on this actually getting out the door in time for us to all see it before it's 2020. Having said that, think about that safe harbor statement, the cut down one that I gave at the beginning of this session. It's in essence the same thing that Oracle says, maybe, right? I think they would very much like to release it in Q4. I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen. They've already missed it once this year, but again, fingers crossed, and I'm sure it's to everyone's benefit that they do it just as they possibly can. So what do you get with 11.2? Okay, 11.2 is a continuation, the new release, the new version of on-premises planning, consolidations, whatever. What do you get? Well, what you don't get is with this release, any net new applications functionality. What you do get, though, is a big deal, and I'll explain why it works that way. Oracle have completely rewritten the core, the foundation of EPM on premises. So when you run 11.2, you're going to have modern OSs, you're going to have modern databases, modern middleware, and an IT department that doesn't wish you were dead because you're making them on old, obsolete, out of standard software releases and software products. That's a big deal. You may say, well, I'm not seeing the improvement in my application, but now you have a way forward when you think about Premier support out through 2030. This is how they're going to do it. They're going to make the product move into the modern world. This first release is Windows only. Windows 2019, SQL Server 2017, or Oracle 12.2, and JDK 1.8. You would think, given that Oracle, or one might think, given that Oracle is the owner of Linux, that would be the first release. They don't know why they did it the way they did it. It is coming. It is coming to Linux 7 and AIX 7.2 and later releases. I don't know when. I think it's interesting that they picked Windows. I suspect they looked at their on-premises customers and did a poll or did a survey of who's running what. Maybe they looked at Oracle support itself. I think Windows must have been the larger audience, the larger share, and that's why they went with that as the first release. You don't need to rebuild your apps when you move to 11.2. So if you remember when I talked about migrating to the cloud, how that's at least a minimal review and rebuild of your application on the planning side, or really a complete rebuild of your application and the consolidation side via HFM to FCCS. That is not the case with this release because the functionality, at least on the first go-round, is the same between the two releases. There are some exceptions to that. When Oracle looked at what are people using in 11.124, what could be modernized, what can be moved forward into the next release of the product, they decided to get rid of some of the functionality. I think this really and truly was based on how many people use it and how much do they complain about it in terms of it works or it doesn't work. EPMA. I have been around this product since I think it first came out when it was called BPMA in 2008, and I believe I've hated it since 2008 onwards. That's 11 years of hate on my part. It's a lot of emotion to expend. Why did I, beyond snarkiness, why did I dislike it? Because in the planning and S-based world, it has always been kind of kludgy. I think for HFM, it's been a pretty good fit, but for the other products, it's generally not used. And I believe Oracle looked at that and said, why are we continuing with it? So you will have to either go to classic applications to use the native tool metadata managers, or you'll have to go to something called restricted DRM. Restricted DRM is the real deal DRM product. It's limited in the target application types, which are really just EPM, and I believe it's limited in the number of users you can have in DRM. But otherwise, it's the full package. If you already have DRM, I would imagine you're almost certainly using it in place of EPMA. But in any case, those are your two options for managing your application dimensionality. Hyperion BI Plus. This is interactive reporting, production reporting, and even, heaven help us, web analysis. These were, I believe, part of the Siebel acquisition. I know there are customers out there that used it in the past. I haven't seen it in years. This is your time to move away from that because it's not going to be part of 11.2. I have to believe that the number of actual customers out there is pretty small because it really hasn't changed. Way more than 4 or 5 years. It's been a static product. In the planning world, probably the biggest one is strategic finance. Strategic finance will no longer be part of on-premises if you want it. You are going to have to move to the cloud and the functionality up there. Crystal Ball, predictive analytics with Crystal Ball is going away. Again, I think that's something they would expect you to get in EPPCS or Enterprise EPM. The simplified, and again, I don't think a whole lot of people used it. Simplified UI, also not terribly used, gone. The ones that would get your attention, workforce, CapEx, and projects, offline is, again, not a terribly used one. If you have an 11.124 application that uses these modules, you're fine. When you do your migration, all of the functionality, all of the business rules, forms, et cetera, all come across. Any net new planning applications where you want to do workforce or you want to do projects, that will not include those modules and the pre-built components of those modules. The way it was explained to me was Oracle believes that everyone who's ever used workforce has ripped it apart and done their own thing. And so why would we go through, being Oracle, why would we go through the expense of doing it again, bringing across something that people generally don't use? You could certainly take your existing 11.124 application and move parts of it over, use it as a guide, et cetera, if you were going to build a new planning application. So it's not like you can't get to the functionality. It's just circuitous path. HFM still exists. Okay, HFM is not going away, so please understand that for on-premises. But there are components of it that go away. Extended analytics, FM analytics. I think I first saw that in 2009. It does have some usage out there, but that is going away. Text-based application link, which is sort of a different take on extended analytics, is also going away, as is quantitative management reporting. There are just a few other things that are going away. Disclosure management is EPM mobile or mobile. I don't think many people use EPM mobile, so I don't know how great of a loss that is. The ODI knowledge modules for EPM, they're officially going away, but they've really pretty much been gone for quite a while. I can't remember when Oracle stopped supporting it or stopped giving it much support, but now it's official. If you are a big ODI user and you use it for managing your dimensions, managing your data in EPM, you're going to have to write your own knowledge modules. And I know people have done that out there, so it's not like it's an undoable feat by a customer. And lastly, the humongous security risk that was Flash in Calculation Manager, if you wanted graphical business rules, that's gone as well. So some things you might be a little unhappy about. I think for the most part, these are things that hardly anybody uses, and it shouldn't be a deal breaker for you. What will you get in the near term? Again, not with the initial release of 11.2. You'll get some of the cloud planning features. This is the PVCS or EPBCS, or what is now called Enterprise and Standard Planning. You'll get extended attributes, and you'll get the two big ones. Smart Push, this is the ability to move data from a form in a source plan type to a target plan type. Almost always that's an ASO target for reporting purposes. It doesn't have to be that. And sort of the holy grail of planning security, valid combinations, it's the ability to do EPMs across dimensions. Show this product and not these cost centers, and only these cost centers, instead of just this product and all cost centers and all combinations between the two of them. A big deal. In HFM, you'll get automatic consolidations, better insights, native metadata. In HPCM, extended custom calculations, more support for point of view copies. Tax provisioning will get some new functionality as well. As will FR, no more Win32 financial reports client. Now it's going to be the web UI, the way it is in the cloud tools, a better repository, and the ability to do bursting and batching to MS Office and not just to Adobe PDFs. And SmartView will have, we'll be able to do Office 365 web. I believe it is going to be somewhat less robust than the traditional Excel, but that's true for Office 365 online as well. It's not just Oracle that will be doing that. When I play with it, it doesn't feel as full-featured as the normal local install of Excel. And DRM, I talked about that before. This is the restricted use or limited use of DRM. If you're already a client or already a customer of DRM, then it's a really big deal. If you use DRM and love it, there is an upgrade path to the full product as well. And it is the real DRM that you're using, not a crippled version of it. So how do you get there? This is all wonderful, but what's the path there? It's what they call an out-of-place migration. I didn't understand that the first time I saw that, but you know what it is? It's a brand new install on a new server. What else could you do? I mean, it's new operating systems, it's new databases, it's new everything. What would the in-place upgrade be? It doesn't make any sense, and I think they just decided to get rid of any confusion about it or any potential risks in doing that migration, and just said you've got to install it from fresh. When you move applications from 11.124 to 11.2, you do it via LCM. If you remember way back a couple of slides ago, I said that it's strictly a migration movement. It's just LCM since there aren't any net new bits of functionality in 11.2, not just yet. It's pretty straightforward. You must migrate it from 11.124. So if you are on an older install, you're going to need to migrate it to 11.124. So 11.1.2.3.500 is out there. I've heard there are older ones as well. If you plan on using LCM to do a migration, you're going to have to upgrade to that release and then upgrade to 11.2 itself. So that brings us to the end of our presentation, but it sort of begs the question: what will you be doing in 2 years? What will you be doing in almost 10 years, just over 10 years? For the time being, because support has been extended for 11.124, you can stick with that. Stick with that through the end of 2021. That's not a lot of time in the lifespan of an Oracle EPM application. There are ones that have been around for years. There are people, I'm actually currently on a project where we're building a new 11.124 application. They have, my current client has, and you have as customers on 11.124, some breathing room, but not a tremendous amount. Like I said, after permanent support becomes extended support. Go on My Oracle Support, and there are also lots of public documents that explain the many, many levels of Oracle support. But just realize as you go down the tiers, you get less and less. That's just the nature of the beast in terms of keeping old applications around. They will not use double negatives. Oracle will not never support your product. There will be some level of support, but it becomes less and less robust over time. So, given that, over the next 2 years, my recommendation to you would be figure it out. Either stick with on-premises, move to 11.2. For all the reasons that I enumerated at the beginning of this presentation, stick with your on-premises world for the time being, at least, or maybe going into the future, into 2030. Or move to the cloud. But 11.124 as a long-term solution probably is not a fantastic idea, even if it's possible to do it. I can tell you what I'm going to do in 2030. I am, fingers crossed, I'll be retired. But I'll be looking on wondering what's going on with you. And so with that, like I said, you need to decide quite quickly, I think, within the next 2 years. With that, any questions? As my goodness, Michelle said, there's the email address. Go ahead and send your questions to info@mindstreamanalytics.com. Thank you for attending this webinar. Michelle?